Another question is whether the presidential election really matters. And it does. So I'll give you three reasons. And these aren't the only reasons, but these are three reasons. So no matter what laws are passed by Congress, they don't become law. The bill does not become a law, if you think back to Schoolhouse Rock, unless the president signs it into law. So any law that you do want to see happen, any changes you want, requires a president willing to sign that bill into law. So that's pretty basic, but it's important. Secondly, the president has the power to nominate Supreme Court justices and other federal judges. And we pay most attention to the Supreme Court, although where there are only 9 of those positions, but there are hundreds of federal judges, and the president has the authority to nominate people to those positions. The power of the federal court system to interpret the Constitution and decide for us what it means at any given part of our history is super, super important, right? So, what does your right to privacy mean? What does the 14th Amendment mean? All of that, equal protection under the law, immigration, DACA, all of that ends up in the courts. The president has a huge amount of power there. So if nothing else, you should pick a candidate who you think, given the opportunity, when there's a vacancy, will put somebody on the court that you like. Or that you think will make good decisions. So even if you're not thrilled with the candidates, if you vote for the one that you think will put judges in place that will interpret the Constitution in ways that you agree, then that's important. And the third thing about a presidential election, we know that this country has been really divided for the past number of years recently. And the President of the United States has a lot of capacity to either unite or divide us. And so I think picking a president that is likely to unite rather than divide, if that can be done, is important, especially when we're facing so many crises. We've got the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. We have in California and the West, we have these historic and tragic wildfires, and we have climate change, which is at least to a certain degree related to those wildfires. So we have so many things to deal with, and we will tackle those issues as a country better if we're united and not squabbling with each other. So the president has a big role to play in that. All right, and the next question is, on the theme of the presidency, the question is whether Donald Trump is going to win. And the answer is, I don't know. We don't know. Here's what I think I know. What I think I know is that unless something really changes, Joe Biden is going to win the national popular vote. But winning the national popular vote is not enough to win the election. And current predictions say that Joe Biden would have to win the national popular vote by about 5 percentage points in order to be pretty sure, not certain, but pretty sure to win the Electoral College. So that creates a big advantage for Donald Trump, that not only does he not have to win the national popular vote, he can actually lose the national popular vote, as he did in 2016, and still win the Electoral College. So it's really this math and calculation about what's going to happen in the Electoral College. And just a quick maybe minute or so on that. So the Electoral College allocates electoral votes to each state. The Constitution allocates electoral votes to each state based on the number of seats the state has in the House of Representatives plus the number of senators they have. Well, every state has 2 senators. Well, if you look at a state like California, we get 53 electoral votes because we have 53 seats in the House, and then we add 2 to get 55. But a state like Wyoming starts with only 1 electoral vote. They only have 1 seat in the House, and then they triple that number by adding 2. So if you think about the difference between adding 2 to 53 versus adding 2 to 1, there's a distortion. And so what happens is that on a per person basis, California is actually underrepresented in the Electoral College. And I won't go through all the math, but I'll just say this. If California were given the electoral votes based on the same ratio per population as Wyoming, we wouldn't have 55 electoral votes. We would have something like 200 electoral votes to Wyoming's 3. That's how distorted the Electoral College system is. There's another distortion in the Electoral College that isn't based on the constitutional rules, but is based on what states do. And states are allowed to decide how to convert their popular vote in their state to the electoral vote. And most states use something called winner take all, or unit rule. And with winner take all, it takes a very narrow victory and turns it into a blowout. A narrow popular vote victory in a state becomes a blowout, all or nothing. And this is also one of the reasons, or the main reason, why the winner of the national popular vote can lose the Electoral College election, which of course happened in 2016, as I mentioned, but it also happened in the year 2000. So the Electoral College has two major distortions in it, and that put a lot more pressure at the moment on Democratic candidates more so than Republican candidates. That could shift, but that's the advantage right now. And someone asked, how often do people ages 18 to 21 vote? And the answer is, historically, that younger voters have the lowest voter turnout. It's just almost like a ladder, right? The older the voter, the higher the turnout. However, I would say this, that in 2016, while younger voters had the lowest turnout of any age group, they were the only age group to increase their turnout over 2012. So something happened, right? Something happened between 2012 and 2016. So the turnout of young voters is super important. And we see it go up at certain times. It did noticeably go up in the Barack Obama years and so on. But there was an increase in turnout between 2012 and 2016. Let's see. What are some of the other inalienable rights? And I just want to clarify that the phrase unalienable rights comes from the Declaration of Independence, not from the U.S. Constitution. And in the Declaration of Independence, the specific rights that are mentioned are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's sort of a riff on a guy named John Locke, who came up with an idea of natural rights that we have at birth in his theory as humans. And he said they were life, liberty, and property. Thomas Jefferson and the authors of the Declaration of Independence changed property to pursuit of happiness. So those are considered the inalienable rights. The real issue is, how do we define them, right? There are lots of ways to define those rights and to disagree about what those definitions mean. So I hope that was helpful. I think I answered most of the questions. And thanks, everybody, and happy Constitution Day. Stay well.